in Camden Town. I'll meet you at the underground. In Camden Town, we'll walk there as the sun goes down. In Camden Town.
Welcome to Camdeners, the official podcast for the Camden Clean Air Initiative, with me, Jeffrey Young. In this podcast, we get to know and discover the lives of Camdeners, those special individuals shaping the unique and vibrant culture of the borough of Camden. Today, we're here in the studio with British artist and designer Adam Nathaniel Furman. Adam, welcome to Camdeners.
Thank you so much.
Tell us about your background. You're an artist.
I'm an artist and designer who lives in Camden, very near here, who I trained in architecture. So my background, initially I was thinking about doing fine arts. I went to St. Martin's a very long time ago and then moved into architecture. I studied that, worked in architecture for many years, about 8 years, also taught in architecture.
Okay.
Taught in Camden in St. Martin's at King's Cross. Worked in architecture for many years as well, in various practices, including OMA in Rotterdam, which is Rem Koolhaas's office. Ron Arad here in Camden, like just down the road. And then set up my own studio, which focuses on installations, artwork, and design in 2016.
Paint me a picture to use a.
The jumper helps.
Yeah. So colourful for sure.
Yes.
Give us an image of what your artwork is and what it looks like.
The most obvious description would be colourful, because I think that's the thing that makes it stand out from a lot of contemporary design, which a lot of it tends to be very monochrome, or greyish or grey. But yes, that's important. But I'm sort of very interested in overall what one might describe as the decorative, which very often that's been used as a pejorative or a sort of term of demeaning term to refer to people's work. But actually, for me, the decorative is where so much of the ability of design and architecture to communicate and create emotions and affect people comes from. And colours are a very important part of that, but it's not everything. So I'm really interested in ornamentation, two-dimensional decorative ornamentation, but also three-dimensional architectural ornament. So one of the reasons I work very often in ceramics. So to give you a range of the idea of, or an idea of the range of kind of scales that I work with, I'm doing the base, so the first sort of 10 meters of a skyscraper at the moment in South London, and that's all being done with very large, they're 4 kilos each, three-dimensional porcelain tiles, which I've developed with CDJ up in the north of England. But then on the other hand, I'm wearing a jumper from my fashion collection, so I sell, kind of jumpers and jackets and things. But then also very interested always in describing and explaining why the decorative, the ornamental are actually really, really interesting and very important. And to do that, I publish, and I've written many articles. Just published another book with the Royal Institute of British Architects called Queer Spaces, which is kind of tangentially linked, because a lot of the stuff that I'm interested in designing, which was very often which was always dismissed as kind of superficial and decorative, are very often things that were gendered as being feminine, with feminine being a negative thing, or queer, with queer being a negative thing. So that's why I've sort of delved into, I guess, theory, history, and writing as well. And I do large things, but I also do a lot of public art. Got a 57-meter long community-led mosaic, which is being made at the moment in London Bridge Station, which I think will be the largest mosaic in London, apart from the Edoardo Paolozzi in Tottenham Court Road. Big 50-meter long artwork for British Land at Paddington Central. And big something for Canary Wharf at the moment will be launched in July. So a lot of things which are, I guess, trying to bring that quality of craft, materiality, decoration, ornament, which speaks to identity and culture in our public spaces. That's something that I'm really, really passionate about. And that's what people can see in the city. And then I sell, products, furniture, clothing.
Great. Well, you've had some installations. You're an artist in residence at the King's Cross development. What did we see there?
Yeah, so that was fun. I sort of got a call from Argent, who are a really interesting developer, because they walk the walk as well as talking the talk. They are constantly sort of programming their developments with lots of exciting events, and commissioning artwork, temporary or permanent, for for their spaces. And they brought me in for 6 months. It actually ended up being a bit longer, and effectively gave me lots of little opportunities, or maybe not so little, but opportunities to create moments of wonder or delight on the estate. And that ranged from building a huge pyramid, which was, I called it Proud Little Pyramid, but it got known by sort of people who worked in the area and residents as the Big Gay Pyramid. It looked like something had landed from outer space or from Stargate or something. And that was a design that was talking about the queer history of the King's Cross site itself, which is a very important part of queer history in the United Kingdom. And all of that was kind of embodied in a super fun installation. But I also covered a lot of empty shop windows because it was kind of COVID period. There were a lot of empty shops in artworks, which became a trail for families and parents to kind of walk around and visit. And each one of those artworks had a different character so that the children could kind of relate to them because they're, personifying a different quality of a person. So one is like happy, one is bouncy, one is tall, one is skinny, one is rotund, as well as other elements that were ground artwork. So the new bridge was installed there. And I did a series of art. Well, I did an artwork on there that turned it into a sort of color barcode where people would, mostly children would hopscotch across the bridge. And so those sorts of fun installations that would activate the space during a lot of the time, the non-summer period when they have most of the events. And then during the summer period, the pavilion, the pyramid, which was used a lot by events. So people would record themselves dancing on it.
Right. So where do you get this inspiration from?
So the inspiration is not really a problem. I'm one of those people that I walk down the same street I've walked down for my whole life, and I'll still sort of get amazed at things that I'll see each time. So like wherever I go, I tend to get very excited, which is very evidenced on my Twitter feed because I'm sort of just constantly excited by little details in the city around me wherever I'm going. But I do have like a really great bank of inspirations from, I guess, growing up. I was exposed to Japanese and Argentine culture a lot and visiting those countries a lot, which was already just a whole extra bank of inspiration and kind of other cultural elements, which I was very lucky to be given. And then also growing up as a teenager in London, I was very much part of the queer scene. And partying and nightclubbing, and the kind of back in the 90s, it was really cutting edge. Like the graphic design, the interior design, the fashion design of the London gay scene was very much at the front end of what was happening anywhere in the world. And so that all kind of merged together with a passion for architectural history, which is why you get these very strange combinations of very architectural, but kind of unusual combination of architectural forms in my work, combined with quite wild colors and decorative references, which might come from Japan, Argentina, and then crossed with early 2000s gay club culture meets a cathedral. So that's some of the kind of weird combinations that you get because of the references that I use.
Amazing. Well, it sort of makes me think of the project just around the corner is restoring the Black Cap, for example. I
had many good memories as a teenager from the Black Cap.
Yeah, and I think they'd probably be looking for some inspiration there for how to take that to a new level when it opens again. We've had many meetings with the guys coming in here and have meetings here, about sort of helping to get that kickstart that off the ground. So yeah, I mean it's a hugely important part of queer history. I mean for the whole country, but especially for this part of London. It was sort of part of my, I guess, a Tory MP would say indoctrination into the gay world. I first sort of discovered gayness at the King Willie up in Hampstead. Right.
And then the next step was the Black Cap. And then the next step after that was King's Cross. And then it led to Soho. So it's sort of like slowly sinking into the gay world of London. The Black Cap was the second stop on that tube line.
Wonderful. Now you live in the borough of Camden?
Yes. Yeah, I live at Belsize Park, so very close.
Yeah. What's the attraction? Why live in this borough?
I mean, I'm from here.
Yeah.
So, I think.
Did you grow up here?
Yeah. So I was born and brought up in Hampstead.
Yeah.
Kind of the bit of Hampstead towards Golders Green.
Okay.
But within Camden.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it was just North London. I mean, this sort of Northwest London in general is just a really fantastic place to grow up. Especially for me, I was very lucky because I didn't I didn't necessarily fit in. I was one of those kids that didn't fit into school. I was Section 28 period. I was very badly bullied, and actually I got kicked out because of the bullying from school. So I actually ended up sort of schoolless. And basically this part of London provided me with a kind of soft landing. So there were a lot of subcultures, and I think there still are happening, that I could plug into, and that sort of taught me, I guess, that, I wasn't disgusting, and actually I didn't need to be ashamed, and actually all of these attacks that were happening weren't my fault. And then the journey of being indoctrinated began. But I think Camden is pretty amazing at being this sort of balance between almost having not a suburban lifestyle, but a sort of normal residential world, but at the same time having all of the stuff that London can offer from the other side that maybe the parents wouldn't approve of so much.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of perfect for me.
Yeah.
And, it just made sense. I lived in Soho for 15 years, and it made sense for me to sort of move back into the area because it's also an area that's full of creatives still. Not maybe Hampstead per se, but in the wider area. And so it just made sense to sort of stay within that orbit.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any favorite parts of Camden? Well,
the parks.
The parks, yeah.
Yes, really. Especially I have 2 dogs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm definitely a dog person. So, but we live equidistant between the Heath and Primrose Hill.
Yeah.
And you don't really get better than that.
So have you had a choice? Hampstead Heath or Primrose Hill?
Oh, it depends. So during the week, Primrose Hill, weekend, the Heath.
Okay.
But I mean, most of I have memories from everywhere growing up here, but particularly the Heath is kind of this amazing magic wonderland. If you're a teenager, like there's lots of teenagers that disappear into it when they shouldn't, when the sun has set.
Yes.
And it's this amazing kind of world that was very, very fun to have. And as I'm sure there's, cruising that goes on there as well. So that was, I happen to live by West Heath.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to experience.
Yeah. So you live in the borough of Camden. Does Camden sort of inspire you? Does it, is it sort of an inspiration for you artistically?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, I mentioned sort of these other countries that I was very lucky to experience, but growing up in Camden was, it's a very diverse place. And, I come from a wealthy family, they sent me to sort of stupidly expensive school, got kicked out of that school. And I think it's a really nice part of the world where you get a lot of different ethnic groups mixing. You get a lot of people from different social classes and backgrounds, people from families of different income bases, and there's quite a lot of mixing that goes on, unlike in many other places where they're sort of segregated. And I think that's a really fantastic legacy of the kind of the council itself. Yeah. I know everyone has lots of problems with their own local council, but Camden does have this incredible history of being a council that has intentionally created that environment from the 60s, from when it was created onwards, and their incredible social housing building campaign that was obviously ended when they couldn't borrow money anymore in the 80s, but prior to that was instrumental in forming that. Also happens to have incredible architecture, which is world beating, from Alexandra Road to Branch Hill, up to Highgate New Town. And, it's just it's being very privileged to experience all these absolutely amazing estates with people living in them. But that's also very much within this super diverse collage-like urban fabric around the rest of of Camden's area. And that's just really, I think, very thrilling. And it's, I think, a function of why I went into architecture and urbanism and design.
So where can we find your work?
Oh, so my
now,
work...
if I want to go and actually see...
So now you can see I think it's 1/4 of the mosaic is finished, but you can already get an idea of what it's going to be like in London Bridge. And that's upstairs by the Shard. So at the entrance to the Shard, there's a bus station. Yeah. There's a huge, hideous concrete wall. Yeah. And we're covering that in mosaics. That's there.
Okay.
And then from June, you will, in the middle of Paddington Central, there's that kind of amphitheatre space. You'll be able to see Abundance, which is the kind of big 50-metre long artwork, which will be opened then in June. And Canary Wharf, again, from the 29th of June, I'm going to have an artwork which is going to be sort of dragging Norman Foster's bridge.
Wow.
So there's a bridge that connects to Elizabeth Line from one Canada Square, and I'm basically sort of covering it in very colourful things. And then the kind of bottom of the skyscraper was actually a new pedestrian walkway covered in porcelain in Croydon, will be finished you can already see it from outside the construction site, but will be open in October. And that's right by East Croydon Station. It's the tallest building in South London. So you kind of can't really miss it.
Wow. You got the dream job, really.
Yeah, well, and then there's lots of furniture products and vases and clothing as well. But in terms of things in the city, those are the first ones that you're going to be able to see that are permanent. Because up until now, it's been mostly temporary pop-up things.
Yeah. So a little boy from Hampstead, you must feel quite,
Yeah, I mean,
quite special.
Well, no, I mean, Hampstead, full of wealthy Nepo babies. So, I think it's, I'm not particularly unique in terms of coming from Hampstead and doing lots of things. But it is, I guess, in terms of my growing up specifically, and yes, it's really thrilling. I mean, to be honest, I'm very happy to be alive because there were certain periods through my 20s and in the kind of end of my teens where, it was touch and go with the kind of really, really, really homophobic context that I was trying to sort of get a education in, and then later get a profession in. And the fact that I'm, I guess, brought up with quite a FU attitude where I don't really hide anything, and that wasn't really conducive to actually getting opportunities. So bearing that in mind, yes, it's gone. I'm very happy that it's gone well and surprised.
So when did it start? You're all of a sudden it feels like it's ramped up. You're doing some high profile pieces of artwork, and it just when did it all of a sudden it went boom?
Very recently. So so that it started. I guess the beginning of me feeling like there was a sort of sea change was in 2017. I was invited to Berkeley in California, to the university, to give a conference, to run a symposium on queering architecture and urbanism. And that was the first time that I'd ever been in a room where I didn't have to, I guess, spend half the time justifying the existence of my practice rather than talking about interesting ideas, because there was a room full of people who knew already and accepted it. And we had really fantastic discussions. And then I came back to the UK and it was just the usual old rubbish. And then in 2019, I was invited by the Architectural Review, which is a kind of fantastic progressive architectural publication, to write an essay on queer aesthetics and what my opinions on it. And that sort of went viral within the design world. So not sort of hugely viral, but sort of was very widely read within the design world. And that catalyzed a change where people started to see my work differently or through that lens. And suddenly when, it wasn't really acceptable to talk about it in the way that it had been before. So from 2019 onwards, there's been a sort of ever increasing ramping up of acceptability, I guess, of my work. And then the book came out. So Queer Spaces, the book that came out last year, has generated a lot of discussion within the world of urbanism, architecture and design. And that's been very, very helpful at opening up the minds of not only peers, but also potential clients.
So moving forward into the future, are you optimistic about where we're going in terms of urban design, sustainability, queer culture, the whole kind of plethora of a new world emerging?
Yes, basically. I mean, and one has to be to a certain degree, because otherwise there's a sort of level of despair that comes in. But I think particularly within London, and I'm very, very much a Londoner, so like this is my world and I love it so much. I have to kind of be dragged away from it. But I think in London there is a general awareness, and this, this is from the mayor through to most of the councils, that the transition to a sort of low carbon economy, or zero carbon economy, also changing the way people move around the city, is a really good opportunity to make the city better overall, not just in terms of changing modes of transport. I am concerned that we have some fringes on the right wing who, honestly, it's very difficult to understand where they're coming from. For instance, take ideas which are very simple urban ideas for making communities walkable, friendly, cozy, like the 15-minute city. It's a very simple idea to just like have everything 15 minutes away. It's not crazy. And they're calling it like a communist plot. And they lie. They're literally saying that the 15-minute city is something which is about controlling people and watching you to make sure that you don't go more than 15 minutes away from your house. I mean, it's completely bananas stuff. And so the culture war does seem to be coming for urbanism. And I have been noticing that also, especially in America. A lot of debate has been reduced down to, does stuff look old? Does it look new? Is it against the car or is it for the car? So I'm hoping that doesn't spread here. But if it doesn't, there's a lot of goodwill within councils, within the GLA, to create spaces which are much more inclusive than they ever have been or have been in the past. So yes, positive, but at the same time, there are negative winds. Yeah. Just hoping that they don't pick up into a gale force storm.
So what would the borough of Camden look like in 15 years from now? In your ideal scenario, if you could plan out all the space, create all the experiences?
Well, I mean, there'd be lots of squares with no parking. There'd be segregated bike lanes everywhere. There would be EV charging points for where cars are needed everywhere. Greening, so we'd have a lot more spaces in what is normally considered like the street, but which are kind of durable, robust plants. Also, a huge problem is flooding. So I'm sure you know, if you live in Camden, that flooding, particularly around the Heath and sort of Belsize Park and South Hampstead is really a problem, because rain is happening in a much more condensed way now. That we have SUDs, so sustainable urban drainage systems, where we start to have green roofs. So we sort of see wildflower meadows on people's roofs and things, but that holds water and stops it running off immediately. Also, as much as possible, planting and gaps between paving with sand, plants growing in it, that allow for water to not flash flood over tarmac. So yeah, I think it's basically look a lot greener, have a lot less cars, and have a lot more outdoor space for kids to play in and people to sit and relax in, especially as our climate is changing to a more Mediterranean climate.
Well, Mediterranean climate in Britain sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, well, today it feels like it, but then it didn't yesterday.
Adam, thanks for joining us here today on Camdeners.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
In Camden Town.
And that's all this week for Camdeners. Camdeners was recorded in Serendipity Studios in Arlington Road for the Camden Clean Air Initiative.
Camden Town. In Camden Town. In Camden Town.